Hello and welcome to week 2, lesson 1 of distance learning. Just like last time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you all the directions first. We're going to do some pre-writing, and then finally we're going to read our text and answer questions. Okay? I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take my face off the screen. I also want to say that if at any point I'm moving too quickly, go ahead and pause the video and then replay it once you're done either writing or answering the question. All right? Okay. Distance Learning Student Work Packet Grade 3 Animal Habitats ELA Week 2. Unit Overview. You have learned about the various ways that plants and animals work together inside of an ecosystem. You have read about methods animals use to adapt to their habitats, along with how those habitats are often threatened by human activity. Distance Learning Summary. In this distance learning unit, you will explore the ways human interaction affects the inhabitants of an ecosystem. You will consider the ways various parts of the ecosystem work together. You will also explore ways humans have both negatively and positively impacted various ecosystems. In the next 3 weeks, you will engage with text to investigate and write about the following line of inquiry. How are animal habitats affected when humans interact with their ecosystem? We know a great deal about this already from what we've learned inside class and what we've learned last week with our distance learning. Let's go to the next page. Day 1. Accessing prior knowledge and asking big questions. Objective. Today you will read informational text to begin research on your literary analysis topic. Directions. Read the text titled Human Changes to the Environment and the Missing Links. Before reading, jot down information that demonstrates what you already know about the problems that occur when humans interact. Use the 5 W's and H to ask clarifying questions in support of your research process. Asking questions can support you in your understanding of the topic. Be sure to include the focus question below when asking your own questions about the topic. Focus question. What problems occur when humans interact with animal habitats? So all this is really asking us to do is to think about what we already know about how humans cause problems for animals in their habitats, and then ask questions about what we want to know about how humans cause problems for animals and habitats. So let's start with the first part. Let's think about everything we already know about how humans can cause problems for animals in their habitats. I have an example. My example says humans sometimes put chemicals in habitats causing animals to die. I got this from our text last week when we learned that the chemical DDT was able to harm eagles because it made the shells softer, and ultimately the baby eagles would die before they were born. I would like for you to write anything and everything that you know about the focus question, which is what problems humans cause for animals in their habitats, and I'd like you to put it in this first box. I'm going to give you about 10 seconds, and then after that I'm going to continue, but feel free to pause the video and continue after you're done. Okay, so now it's time for us to ask our own questions about what we want to know about this topic, okay? They ask us to use the 5 W's and H, which is who, what, when, where, why, and how. And again, I'm going to refer to this focus question even when I'm asking my questions, all right? So the focus question again is what problems occur when humans interact with animals in a habitat. So what problems do humans cause for animals? Ultimately is what it's asking you. So you're supposed to make 4 questions out of that topic, right? So my first question says, do humans hurt animals in their habitats? That's a question that I would like to have answered by time I'm done reading the text. This is really for you to think about what you want to know. So you may use mine as an example, but I don't want you to copy. I want you to think about your own questions and think about what you want to know about this topic. Again, I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to make 4 questions. First question goes in Q1, second question goes in Q2, third question goes in Q3, and the fourth question goes in Q4. Okay, I'm going to move on. This text is called Human Changes to the Environment. All right, this text has been adapted from the original work of the Core Knowledge Foundation. Every plant and animal in a natural ecosystem depends on other plants and animals for its survival. For example, a butterfly depends on a flower's nectar for food. At the same time, a flower depends on butterflies and other insects to spread its pollen. My question here is, how do butterflies and flowers depend on each other? That's right, butterflies depend on the flowers for food, and flowers depend on butterflies to spread pollen, okay? Thousands of years ago, early humans were like all other living things in nature. They were just another part of the natural food chain. They hunted animals and gathered plants for food. They made shelters and clothing using the materials in their environment. Most importantly, they used only what they needed for basic survival. My question here is, how did humans find food thousands of years ago? According to this paragraph, they hunted animals and gathered plants for food. However, humans also had the ability to create and use technology. At first, they used simple technology, like tools made of stone and wood. These tools made it easier to hunt, build, and do other things for survival. And here in the photograph, actually this is not a real photograph, this is a picture, a drawing of what it might have looked like. We can see early humans using tools to hunt an animal for food. And underneath it, it tells us the tools were made out of stone and wood. So this is an early example of technology of people use to hunt. Over time, technology improved. Humans learned to create and use machines. Instead of hunting animals, they learned to raise animals like cows and chickens for food. Instead of gathering nuts, berries, and roots, they learned to grow their own crops. In other words, humans learned to change and control some parts of nature to meet their needs. Can anyone give me an example of how humans today, or you could say in the recent past, find food? What do we do today to get food versus what they did in the past? So today we raise cows and chickens for food rather than simply hunting them in the wild, and we also grow our own crops. Let's go to the next page. With technology, humans were able to change the environment. The land in this picture may have been a forest or natural grassland. Now, instead, it is a wheat field. Insects and other organisms still live in the soil and feed on the wheat plants. However, this is not what you might call a natural field. Humans planted the seeds in this field, and humans decide when to harvest the crops to make food. Why is the field in the photo below not considered a natural field? It's not considered a natural field because humans have planted the crops here, and we also get to decide when we pick the crops for harvest, which ultimately means that when we are going to eat the food. That is not a natural occurrence in a field that may occur in nature. It's only something that we have when humans have planted their own crops, right? And in the photograph, we see a field as well as we see a piece of technology. I'm not actually sure what this is called, but this machine is helping to harvest the crops. The land beneath any town or city was once a natural ecosystem. Then humans came along and used technology to change the natural environment. There are some trees and grass and flowers in the city, but they are only there because people want them there. Some animals, like squirrels and birds, also live in cities alongside humans, but these creatures had to learn to survive in an environment created by humans. Now, with all our cities and technology, it is sometimes easy for us to forget about nature and ecosystems. It is easy for us to think of nature as something we can visit, but not something we are really a part of. How have humans changed ecosystems? Based on what you've read, how have humans changed ecosystems? Humans have changed ecosystems by making cities, by having their own crops that they harvest, and this has affected animals in many ways, as we're going to continue reading as we keep going. The next story is called, or I should say text, is called The Missing Lynx. Meet the most endangered wild cat in the world, the Iberian lynx. 100 years ago, thousands of these lynxes roamed Spain and nearby Portugal, part of the region that makes up Iberia. But by the 1990s, they were missing from almost the entire area. Fewer than 100 remained in the wild. There are a number of reasons Iberian lynxes have become so rare. One reason is that some of the land they need has been taken for farming and building. Another is that roads cut through the lynx's habitat, so the cats are sometimes hit by cars. Also, people illegally kill them. But one of the biggest reasons the lynxes are disappearing has to do with their diet. These cats eat rabbits and little else. Unfortunately, in the last 60 years, rabbits in lynx areas have been almost wiped out by disease and hunting. As the rabbits disappear, the lynxes have too. This is really as much a story about missing rabbits as it is about missing lynxes. To save the lynxes, scientists have to help the rabbits. My question here is, why has the Iberian lynx disappeared? You can use any of the last 3 paragraphs we just read to answer the question. So there are many reasons listed here. The reason that I'm going to reiterate is that their diet, which consists of mostly rabbits, was disturbed because the rabbits also were dying out. So this made it so the lynxes could not eat, and ultimately they began to die. To help the lynxes, scientists came up with a plan to bring back the rabbits. They created rabbitats. The word is a cross between rabbit and habitats. And the rabbitats are artificial burrows, tubes that go underground in the way that real rabbits do. The scientists put fences around big areas containing the rabbits. The fences were high enough to keep out rabbit predators such as foxes, mongooses, and boars, but lynxes could easily jump over them. That meant they wouldn't have to compete with other predators for food. Finally, the scientists released more than 1,000 rabbits into the rabbitats. The rabbits had been given shots to protect them from disease. With fewer predators and with ready-made burrows to live in, the rabbits would be able to start breeding right away. My question here is, what are scientists doing to help the Iberian lynx? Again, I want you to think about the last 3 paragraphs we read. Think about what they're doing. Just give me one example of what scientists are doing to help the lynx. So the reason I'm going to state again is that they released over 1,000 rabbits into these rabbitats, into these habitats, where lynx could readily eat them and they wouldn't have to compete with other predators for food. Operation Lynx. Putting back the rabbits was one part of the puzzle. Putting back the lynxes was another. When scientists first saw how endangered the Iberian lynx had become, they took some wild lynxes and brought them to breeding centers. There the animals could mate and have babies in safety. The goal was to have more lynxes to release back into the wild. Over the years, the lynxes in the breeding centers multiplied. Finally, it was time to release some lynxes. Can anyone tell me what is Operation Lynx? Essentially, Operation Lynx was scientists taking lynx out of the wild, putting them into captivity, giving them a safe environment to reproduce and have lots of babies, and then finally releasing them back into the wild. Making lynxes welcome. But before that could happen, scientists needed to work with landowners to stop them from killing lynxes that came onto their properties. The landowners wanted to hunt the rabbits for themselves and didn't want the lynxes to get them first. Now scientists have been able to convince many landowners to allow lynxes to live on their land. The scientists explained to the landowners that lynxes keep other rabbit predators out of their territory. That means there can still be plenty of rabbits for both the lynxes and the hunters. Once many landowners had agreed, the lynxes were released. Hope for the future. The lynxes have adapted well to their new home and are even having lots of babies. In addition to releasing captive bred lynxes, scientists have also moved some wild lynxes to new areas where there hadn't been any in a long time. After all these efforts to rescue the Iberian lynx, there's some good news. In the last 10 years, the lynx population has tripled. Today, more than 300 lynx roam free. There is still a long way to go, but the hope is that these special cats are on the road to recovery. Thinking about everything we just read, why do scientists feel there is hope for the lynx? So one example from the text that we learned that there are now over 300 lynxes, and that number has tripled. So that is a good indication that there is hope for the lynx. Alright guys, we are done with day 1 of week 2. Please come back tomorrow for the next lesson.